Welcome to Neurodivergent and Sleep for the Midlife Woman. I'm so excited that you're here. We have a crisis in the sleep department from a neurodivergent perspective. Well, I would say actually universally. If, as an integrative medicine doctor, if I could change one thing in the entire world, it would be sleep. If I could make everybody sleep, we probably could cure 60% of chronic illness. Like, no joke. So sleep is really important. And as being neurodivergent women, and then also adding in midlife, we have more issues that we have to talk about, or different things, different issues, and different strategies that we really need to be a part of. And that's what I want to talk about today. As an integrative medicine doc, I deal with lots of patients that are on stimulants, antidepressants, sleep meds. My goal really, though, is to look at you as the whole person and try to tether out what's actually happening, understanding the neurodivergent brain piece, and how we look at that, right? And remember, every neurodivergent brain is different. So mine is very different than yours, right? Than is your friends and everyone else. So precision guided medicine really has to come into play here. But there are some few underlying mechanisms that happen in the neurodivergent brain that we need to take accountability for. One of those is called sensory gating. So a lot of our neurodivergent brains have reduced sensory gating. Or, like I say, that's like our filter is leaky, right? Like light, sound, different sensations register more loudly. And I'll give a good example of for me, and then what some of my women in my practice say. But, like, I can hear the refrigerator humming, right? I try to go to sleep at night. This is why white noise can sometimes be helpful, but sometimes it's not helpful, right? Because for me, I don't want that noise, right? But the refrigerator humming, or the filter, for the air filter, right, in your room that's trying to clean the air, because we want to do that too. So sometimes we can see that problem. Our environment, our sleep environment, can be an issue, right? That's affecting our sleep latency, or how long it takes us to fall asleep. Um, then we also, we operate obviously on different standards from a neurodivergent perspective. So I don't know if any of you suffer from this, but I do. But there's a thing called, we get our second wind at night. Okay. And I will never forget this. One of my very first receptionists used to say to me, "What do you do at nighttime?" She's like, "What?" She's like, "I wake up at 5 a.m. and I get these emails from you, and they're all from like 8 or 9 p.m. And it's like, oh, and we should do this, 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 and blah, 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 blah." And I was like, I never actually thought about it until I was like, yeah, well, I do my best work then because I don't have any other sensory drivers, right? And that's a real thing. You may suffer from that, you may not. Um, and it seems like it's really great, right? You get this like second wind, and it can be. However, if that's impending your sleep, if you're getting revved up because you're getting all of these ideas and you're getting the second wind, then that's affecting our sleep, which then is going to go back and affect everything that we do from a daily perspective. So it can be hindering, right? And there's some things we can do to kind of offload that. Another thing is, we actually see in the neurodivergent brains that we do have tend to have issues from our circadian perspective. So research looked at and showed that potentially we have reduced melatonin, or our melatonin actually doesn't start to kick in until later than neurotypical brains. And what does that mean, right? Melatonin, despite what some people think, is not the hormone that makes us go to sleep. It's not, right? Which is why it doesn't work for some people. It's actually something that helps us start to kind of wind down. And we see in the neurodivergent brains that we can have either a later onset of that naturally, or a decreased amount of melatonin. So we're not able to kind of down regulate that piece of it. Okay, good. We have some things we can do for that. And then also add in midlife. Okay. So from a neurodivergent perspective, we've probably been dealing with all of this stuff our entire life, right? We're very busy in the day. We're masking. We're doing all these things that are really expensive. Maybe our brains don't shut off at night. Now, why midlife is even worse is we add in hormonal deficiencies to that. So with perimenopause and menopause, estrogen is declining and becoming erratic, right? Which is a lot of the problem from our neurodivergent standpoint. It's not just that it's going down, it's that it's going like this. And we don't like that, right? Which is why we're sensitive to not only hormones, but majority of us are sensitive to what? Every medication, every supplement we take, right? So we don't like that delta. We don't like the high, the low. We don't like that change. Our brains really like stability, right? Um, so estrogen is being affected and then progesterone too, right? So there's two different types of sleep issues in midlife that are hormone related. One is you can't fall asleep. Okay. That's where we are either getting our heightened awareness and starting to do a lot of work. And more importantly, not more importantly, but more specifically from a hormone perspective, when our progesterone starts to decline, we get a lot of ruminating thoughts. So a lot of women, this is probably one of the most sleep issues that I hear from a neurodivergent perspective in midlife, which is Dr. Sarah, I can't turn my brain off. Right. I lay there and it's like, okay, what about this? And what about that? And what about that? And oh my gosh, I have to have this conversation tomorrow. And I'm going to say this to this person and da 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 da. And then I have to do this next week and I have to have this presentation. And oh my gosh, what if I don't do well? And right. And then we call this rumination and our brain just goes and goes and goes. That can be a progesterone problem. Remember that progesterone can be declining in our 30s. And for a lot of neurodivergent women, guess what? We've had a low progesterone problem. If you were someone that suffered from PMDD, right? PMOS, right? We see that there's these lower progesterone issues that tend to affect neurodivergent women more than they do neurotypical. So we've already been dealing with that. And now we add on midlife when that progesterone is really taking a crash and we don't have an ability to turn that brain off, right? That's where that anxiety can come from. That like, oh my gosh, well, what if that happens? And what if this happens? And right? That's rumination and that's a progesterone problem. Then the other piece from a hormonal perspective is the estrogen piece. So two ways from an estrogen piece. It can be causing hot flashes and night sweats. And those are brain issues, right? Estrogen goes down in the brain, glutamate can go up. When that happens, the temperature center of the brain triggers and you get night sweats and hot flashes. Guess what? Some women are waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning drenched in sweat, have to actually get up, physically change their sheets, physically change their clothes. That's a whole ordeal, right? And then they can't get back to sleep. The other thing that happens if you're not having hot flashes and night sweats is actually as estrogen goes down, cortisol goes up. And normally when we sleep, when we're getting ready to wake up, cortisol is slightly going up in the morning time to get that body ready to wake up. Well, guess what happens when you're estrogen deficient? You have more cortisol in the system around, right? As estrogen goes down, cortisol goes up. That's why insulin resistance goes up and a whole other bunch of factors that happen to us in midlife, like the menobelly, right? So cortisol is going up. So what happens when the body's natural cortisol starts to rise at 2 or 3 in the morning? You have more cortisol in the system. So guess what? That wakes you up, right? And women will wake up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Some women can go right back to sleep. Some cannot, right? And that broken sleep in that time is really, really impactful. So hormones play a big role from a sleep perspective on a system that is already and has already for decades had a hard time sleeping for the most part. Okay, so you can see why this can be a little crazy, right? So listen, I also want to talk a little bit about sleep architecture because sleep is not universal. It's not just like, can you fall asleep? Can you stay asleep? Right? There is sleep latency. There is deep sleep. There is REM sleep. And that really matters. So majority of my patients, I have them use a wearable. So an Oura ring, a Whoop strap, your Apple Watch, whatever that is, because when they say, Dr. Sarah, I'm having sleep problems, I need to know where the sleep problem is, right? Because then we can address it. Is it hormonal, right? Is it coming from low ferritin? Is it coming from your thyroid? But where is your sleep being affected, right? Is it that your sleep latency is long? Is it you're not in deep sleep? You're not getting deep sleep. You're not getting enough REM. An interesting factoid, when we look at the research, neurodivergent brains, and this is actually kids to adults, we tend to get less REM sleep. So what does that mean? Everybody in the zeitgeist says, right, you need 7 hours of sleep. Yeah. So we get that and we're like, what the heck? I still feel terrible. I still feel depleted. Well, guess what? If REM is off for us and we're not getting enough REM and enough deep, guess what happens? We're not getting enough restorative sleep. So we probably need 8 or 9 hours. We have to increase the length of sleep because REM can be broken up, or we can do things that target deep in REM, of course. But it's not a one size fits all. And we have to understand how our brains are different so that we can say, hey, what's going on here and how do we optimize it, right? I don't use the word fix because there's no fix in medicine. It's all about optimization. But you can't optimize something you don't know the information to, right? You can't optimize something you don't have the data for. So we have to know. Is your issue, is hormones playing a role? Is labs, if we're going to get into that? But also, what is the issue? So then we can see how we optimize it, right? So it's like, oh, look, she's not falling asleep. So, okay, we give some progesterone. What did that do? Oh, yeah, look, it increased her sleep. But then she woke up at, 2 a.m. And she didn't get enough deep sleep. Well, maybe we need to do estrogen, or maybe we have to look at her ferritin, or maybe we have to look at her thyroid, or maybe we have to change some things. Precision. This is precision, right? Guided. And we need your data, your information, because what my sleep looks like, it's not what yours does. So once we have the information, we can do that. But let me tell you about the architecture. So sleep latency, which is really kind of how fast you fall asleep. I'm telling you this because if you have data right now, if you're wearing an Oura Ring or a Whoop strap or Apple, go look at this. Pull it up right now. Your sleep latency should be less than 20 minutes. Okay. So it should take you less than 20 minutes to fall asleep. Deep sleep, that's your restorative sleep. And REM is where you do your emotional processing and memory consolidation, right? So REM is actually really, really important. Then some of those things, so you'll get that. So you can see how much is your deep sleep, how much is your REM. And then there usually is a sleep efficacy. So time asleep and time in bed. That actually matters the least. Because in the other pieces, right, the deep, the REM, the latency is telling me basically how functional are you when you're sleeping, right? If you're in bed 7 hours and 1 minute and you have good deep, good REM and 5 minute sleep latency, well, good. That's all you need to be. If you're in bed 9 hours and your sleep latency is 45 minutes, your deep sleep is 22 minutes, and your REM is 15, well, guess what? That time in bed is not effective, right? So either we need to lengthen that or we need to improve that sleep architecture, right? We need to work on the deep, the REM, and decreasing your sleep latency. So those are really important, pieces to know. And this is not talking about anybody that potentially has sleep apnea. So I just want to put that out there, right? But trackers are a good way to get this information. Are they completely accurate? No. But do they give us some guidance on you? Yes, absolutely. Okay. How to interpret patterns. Okay. I love my neurodivergent brain loves patterns, which is probably why I'm an integrative medicine doctor, right? Because I love to hear your story, your history, look at the data, look at the numbers. And I always tell everyone, if you could be inside my brain, like you just see this like vast of numbers. And I'm like, oh yes. And that symptom and that and that. So I think it's important that we understand like interpreting patterns and what they could look like. So low, deep sleep. So less than 10%, right, of your total sleep. If that is low, and it's highly fragmented, the first thing I do as a doctor when I'm looking at that information is I think you potentially could have iron deficiency or hormone disruption, right? So your progesterone could be low and the fragmentation, your estrogen, but I always think look at iron too, especially if you're getting low deep sleep. The short latency, right? So you have a short latency, so you're falling asleep fast, but it's fragmented. I see frequent wake ups, right? Not enough deep, not enough REM. I call those micro arousals too, where you may not be up for, 30 minutes, but you kind of wake up for 2 minutes, sleep, wake up, go back to sleep, right? That's micro arousals. I always look at ferritin. I think of silent reflux here too. And I also think of are you having some night sweats, things that aren't fully waking you up, but that brain is kind of ticking. So that's if you're falling asleep well, but you're having these fragmented sleep, I think about that. Delayed onset, but normal architecture once you're sleeping. So your sleep latency is long, but you have good deep and good REM, and it's not fragmented. Guess what? Progesterone, right? I think of that usually as progesterone. Also, I think of that as a delayed sleep cycle. So remember, our circadian rhythm, the whole point of our circadian rhythm is to be up during the day and sleep at night, right? That's very general of what that is, but what is happening? You wake up in the morning, right? And your body says, "Okay, I'm awake." About 12 hours after you do that, your body should start to go to sleep, right? Break it down. When you see light in the morning, which is why we recommend that, it tells your body, tamping down the melatonin, increase cortisol. We're awake, we're ready, right? 12 hours from that, your melatonin should kick in again. Remember, that helps you start that sleep cycle, and your cortisol should go down. So you should be able to start falling asleep. Okay, that's really important. So if that isn't happening, then I think, ooh, their circadian rhythm might be kind of affected. Also, if I see that you are early evening, like earlier in your sleep and early morning wakenings, I think about cortisol too. So also, if I see frequent wakenings, I think about bed safety, which sounds silly, but it's not. It's a big deal for us. Um, when our brains feel safe in an environment, all of these things can get a little bit easier. So bed safety is a big deal. Take a sip of your tea or whatever you're drinking this morning. It can be a big deal to us. Okay. And so sometimes that's simple, and is as simple as easy as having the right weighted blanket, right? Meaning it can't be too big or too heavy, too light. Maybe having the right temperature in the room that makes us feel safe. Maybe it's the right vibe in the room, right? Believe it or not, that those are big deals. Okay. And then we talked about a little bit, we started talking about how hormones impact this. Progesterone is our GABA, right? It helps our slow wave sleep. It helps those ruminating thoughts. It is our Netflix and chill, right? GABA or progesterone gets broken down into the metabolite L-pregnenolone. L-pregnenolone works on the GABA of our brain. Okay. And so that helps us take a deep breath, turn those thoughts down, stop that ruminating, right? Progesterone is a big deal. Now, I will say a caveat to this. We're not talking about hormone replacement here. We're just talking about how these things affect sleep. But I think it's important caveat to know that some neurodivergent women don't do well with low dose progesterone. There's a lot of nuances to hormone therapy for our neurodivergent brains, and that's okay, but just good tool to know. Estrogen, right? Again, she is, and it's a she, progesterone's a she, and so is testosterone, because we're all powerhouses. But remember, estrogen plays over 300, no, excuse me, 400 roles in the female body. That's insane. 400 roles she plays. She's amazing. But as she goes down, right, cortisol can go up. So this is when we are getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That's estrogen deficiency. Okay. And then cortisol obviously, plays a role. And we see a lot in the neurodivergent brains that our cortisol is actually reversed, which is right? Our cortisol is down in the morning and up at night. And we want our cortisol to be up in the morning to say, hey, you're ready, go, 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 and down at night. And sometimes we have that flipped around. That axis can be flipped. What do we do about this, right? So think of it in a couple of ways. One is that our neurodivergent brains are already dealing with, things that are a little bit different, right? So some of us are getting that second wave, right? Where we feel really great and really strong. And that is me. Like I feel good at night, right? I'm like, oh, right, I can conquer the world. Or maybe in the day I didn't feel so. So what can we do? One of the things that we do is offload. right? So I am not going to, and I don't anymore, try to be productive in that night session. But I don't want to have that productivity go to waste, right? I don't know about you, but when I actually feel capable, I want to be able to use that as a powerhouse, but I can't have it affecting my sleep. So what I do is a dump, right? And if you're a paid member, you have the neurodivergent tracker, my neurodivergent tracker. I actually use that. So every night, I do a brain dump. Okay. I literally sit there and I will say all of my ideas. I think we should do this and this, and this is the content strategy. And I want to try to network with this person. And I think people would want to know this. And I want to look up this research study. And I just brain dump it into the tracker. So it's all there. I'm not wasting any of my creative energy. It's all there. I have it documented. I can come back to it later. Right. But I don't need to tackle those things before I go to bed. Okay. So that's one thing that I think is really good. Then one of the other things from a lifestyle perspective is getting that early morning light. So many of us actually are affected by inadequate circadian rhythms, backwards, upside down, or just not as effective circadian rhythms. And one of the things that we can do is actually pretty simple. And it also adds on some of the other things, longevity things we can do. The first 60 minutes that you are awake, you should be getting 10 to 20 minutes of light right into these eyes, right into these retinas. Why? Here's why. Because this cool thing in the back of our retinas called the suprachiasmatic nucleus is what tells the body, the brain, hey, decrease the melatonin, increase the cortisol. She's awake. She's up. She's going. And if you pair this with some other health habits. So for example, when I wake up in the morning, I'm working out actually when it's dark. So as soon as it's light out, I actually take my tea with my creatine and I go outside and I'm getting 20 minutes. I try to do 20 minutes of that direct sunlight right into my eyes. Tell myself, hey, I'm open. I'm doing this, time to go, time to wake up. So you compare it with your tea, you compare it with your creatine, your early morning protein, right? Your electrolytes in the morning. And it doesn't have to be crazy. You do not have to go out there and work out if that's not a thing. Go sit on the back of your lanai. Go feed your birds. I have so many patients do so many things. And yes, right now everywhere is pretty much summer. But if you live somewhere where it's in the winter, you still need to be doing this, right? So you may not want to go fully outside. Sit by a window, right? If it's a big bright window, you can sit. I have one right here in my office. Sit by a window. Go to the bird feeder. Go walk to the mailbox, right? It doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to be out there running a marathon. And the other piece of this is we have to try to do it as many days as possible. And the reason is if we want to get back into a rhythm, if we want the body to start down regulating 12 hours from then and increase our melatonin, decrease our cortisol, you can't just do it one day a week, right? It's like going to the gym once a month and expecting to look like a bodybuilder. It's not going to happen. And I know routines can be hard for us, right? And doing things consistently sometimes because we don't wake up every day the same or wanting to do it. But the more we can, the better off. So if you're not doing it at all, start with 1 or 2 days a week, right? Make this part of what you do. That's what I do. And I look forward to it because I'm like, okay, I got my tea, I got my creatine, I'm sipping out. I look at nature. I live in Florida, so there's a lot of cool nature around me. And right now for me, it's super hot, even that early in the morning. So I'm like, the humidity's bad, but I sit there and look, okay, that's a way that we can start to help our own body start to work. Now, what medically should we be looking at that can also impact our sleep? So yes, hormones, we've talked about that. So if that's where you fall in life, in midlife, which probably is most of you, and you're interested in that, then we should look in that direction, okay, from a hormone therapy perspective. But what else? What else should we be looking at from a medicine perspective? And here's a couple of labs that you should know. Ferritin. Remember, that is our iron stores. There's a lot of cool things about ferritin and neurodivergence. And number one, we need iron to make serotonin. We need iron to make dopamine, right? So we see a lot of I see it all the time in my clinic, lots and lots of low ferritin in neurodivergent women. And that's multifactorial why that happens, right? I think there's a gut issue and there's a whole bunch of issues. but ferritin can be a big reason why we're not sleeping. So if your ferritin is 15, hey, and by the way, if you go and look at your lab work today, which I want you to do if you don't remember what your ferritin is, it should be 70. Okay. So this, oh, 15 to 25, you're optimal. No, you're not. It may be in the green on that paper, but it's not optimal. Okay. And it can be affecting you significantly, not just in sleep, but in daily life from a neurodivergent brain. We need it. Okay. It's a cofactor to make dopamine. Right. So, which usually your ferritin, we should be aiming for about 70. We should be looking at our B12. Same thing, right? And a lot of us from the neurodivergent realm have an MTFR gene mutation, so we need methylated vitamins, which is okay. But B12, same thing. It should be 8 or 900, not 200, not 300, not 400, which technically looks normal on labs. So go check what that is, right? Again, we need these also for our brain. I also look at a complete thyroid. So TPO antibodies, TSH, T4, and T3. Subclinical hypothyroidism is a huge piece, especially in women in general, but also in neurodivergent women. And I see a lot of elevated TPO antibodies, which is your body is kind of attacking your thyroid. Even if you have normal thyroid, um, that is still affecting your body, right? If any part of your body is being attacked by itself, do you not think that has a downward effect? Because it surely does. Okay. And there's things that we can do about it. Yes, I know traditional medicine doesn't. They say come back when you're hypothyroid, but we are not in any way traditional here. Okay. And we are looking at our body and how we can optimize it and the things that are going on. So, thyroid can be a big deal. Okay. And then obviously, if we're dealing with estrogen, progesterone, those types of things, vitamin D levels too. Remember, vitamin D should also be around 70, above 50, I say 50 to 70. We don't want it too high, but remember, vitamin D acts more as a hormone than it actually does a vitamin. So it's big deal in this realm, right? And then magnesium is also a role. You don't need to have your intercellular magnesium checked. The majority of us are deficient anyways, but magnesium is responsible for over a thousand reactions in the body, human body, not even specific to women, in the human body. And a lot of the cofactors, a lot of these reactions that we need from building amino acids to serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, oxytocin, all those things, somewhere along the chain need adequate amounts of magnesium, right? So magnesium is one of those things that's like a no-brainer for most people. Really haven't met anyone who couldn't take it, meaning, restricted by medical piece, couldn't take it. So it's one of those things that's kind of like an easy target. So I look at all of those things, right? Um, do we have any laboratory information to tell us there's something here that we could optimize, right? And then we we optimize that if we can, right? But then we work on a nighttime routine. And I know this gets talked about in the zeitgeist all the time, right? Like sleep hygiene, you need to do this, you need to do that. Why do we do it for our children? It's a question. Why? Like, why do we normally for babies and for toddlers? Okay, you get your bath and we put your lavender lotion on, then mommy, daddy, or whoever reads you a book, and then we sing you a song, and then you go to bed. We do that for our children, just kind of innately, right? But we don't, what it does is it actually trains the brain to know what comes next. Right. So it says over time, right? Not if you do it one day a week, but over time, if you do the same thing every night for your wind down, then your brain starts to understand that. And I say this to my women, even from taking your magnesium to your progesterone, right? I have them split those, like take your magnesium an hour before, then take your progesterone, then go to bed in an hour. Okay. And again, this isn't medical advice. Ask your own doctor what to do. But that's how I start to build this wind down at nighttime. And so it could be taking a bath or a shower. It could be reading a book too, right? It could be singing your own lullaby or doing your own meditation. But then the body gets used to that. So I'll use the hormone piece, for example. We take the magnesium, then they take the progesterone, then you go to sleep. Over time, your body goes, when you take that progesterone and it gets that hit of alpregnanolone, that hit of GABA, your body will say, oh, I know what comes next. She's going to go to bed. Right. And so over time, that helps us. Okay. All of these are a piece of the puzzle, right? So that's a piece of it, right? Building that routine is a piece of the puzzle, right? Optimizing the hormones is a piece of the puzzle. Getting light in the day so that our body and our circadian rhythm is in check is a piece of the puzzle. And you'll hear people now talking about using, certain peptides to reset the circadian rhythm. Epitalon is one of those, right? We really got to look at what it is for you. Where is it? Is it deep sleep? Is it sleep latency? Is it your habits? Is it your hormones? This is so multifactorial. But what's really cool is that we can move the mark pretty significantly. I wean women off of trazodone. That's one a big one that they're on all the time. Okay. And I don't want to say that's simple and easy and straightforward. No, what I usually do is I optimize them, right? So I look at all your data. Where is the issues coming from for you? Then, hey, is there any ones we can hit? Can we build up your ferritin? Is your thyroid okay? Do you need hormones? And if you do, are you okay with that? All of those types of things. And then we look at what are your sleep habits? Can we reset your circadian rhythm? What are the things that we can put in, to those pieces to help? And that's a big kind of deal too. Um, so practical tips though for winding down too is, screens. Screens are a huge thing. And I know I do not tell people to stop using their screens 2 hours before bed. Do you want to know why I don't do that? Because no one's going to do it, right? It's not practical. In the day and age we live in, no one's going to do that. Now, there's going to be some of you out there who do it. God bless your souls. You're amazing. But most people are not going to do that. So why would I waste my time telling people to do something they're not going to do? What you can do is a couple of things. Number one, at 7 p.m., all of the lights in your house should really go off or dim. You can like buy these fancy light bulbs. I'm not doing that, right? But I do put in we do turn the lights down, turn the main lights down and have like dimmer lights on. Again, you're trying to tell those eyes, just as we want to wake them up in the morning, we want to kind of turn them down at night, like, ooh, I think she's going to go to bed soon, right? We're kind of like preparing the body. And then if you're not going to go off screens or like not going to not watch TV, put blue blocking lights on, glasses on. Again, blue light isn't like the death, horrible, some demonous thing, but the less stimulus that we have, the better, right? And also try not to watch or scroll anything that's excitatory. So this is what we do see a lot. If you are going to look at your screen or the TV, don't be watching like a thriller like right before bed. Don't be like watching the news, right? That's going to like amp you up. Don't be doom scrolling and watching all this stuff on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube that's like getting you emotionally hyped, right? Don't do that. Try not. Listen to a meditation, listen to a podcast that you like. We have to try to take this stimuluses away from ourselves, right? We don't need that revved up piece. And if you have those ideas, brain dump, right? Do a brain dump. Or if something comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do this tomorrow or that tomorrow, just brain dump it. Whether you do that in a device, a chat, whatever, or you actually just like physically write it down. Sometimes I like writing things down. Call so and so. Make this, whatever it is, write it down so you have it there in the morning for you. Um, and then some people can downregulate by like doing breath work, right? Remember activating that vagus nerve, right? So some people do vagal nerve stimulus, but that's what breath does. Take a deep breath in, hold it. That's what it is, right? So sleep is multifactorial, but it's one of the most important things that we can do in life. Just like I started this saying, if I could fix everyone in the world's sleep, literally by waving a magic wand, bippity boppity boom, sleep. If I could do that, we probably could cure 60% of chronic illnesses. 60%. Right? So because not sleeping, remember, sleep is the only time your body's in full restoration, right? Your senescent cells, things are getting killed off and things are reviving and tissue. We have got to try to improve our sleep. Okay. We don't have to be perfect, but we have to try to improve our sleep. If we just do that and that alone, right, we are going to be increasing our longevity. And I don't say that's an easy, there is no magic pill, folks. Sorry, it's not trazodone. It's not the Ambien. That it isn't. It's all the things that we have to do, but it starts with understanding what the sleep issue is for us. Because as I've already shown, it's pretty wide and diverse, right? So start with a sleep report card of yourself. If you're already wearing a wearable, check it. What's your sleep latency? What's your REM? What's your deep sleep? Are you getting interrupted sleep every night? And hey, if you're in perimenopause, like you're still cycling, do you notice changes with your cycle? Right? I see that we see this all the time. That luteal phase, you know what's happening, folks. That estrogen is going down, right? Are you waking up more that week before your period? Okay. Can we do something about that? Yes, we can. Right? If hormones are something that you want to do. So, just give the goal for today is to kind of understand that sleep is multifactorial. I didn't do a deep dive in any one of those things, which I can do. I am going to send you some tips and tricks on how to increase REM, deep, and sleep latency that involve behavioral stuff, environmental stuff, hormonal stuff, and then also, medical stuff, meaning if your iron and all those things are low, ferritin, thyroid, that kind of stuff. I'm going to send you a little go by in the paid members chat, so you can look at that. But really, this is about bringing this to our attention, starting to talk about it. And I really want you to take away from this is really just go do a sleep report card on yourself. What is if I have a problem with sleep, what is it? Right? Is it I'm not falling asleep? I'm not staying asleep? Is my deep sleep bad? Is my REM sleep bad? Is it I'm not even offloading, right? I'm taking stimulants all through the day and getting home and then my body is tired, but my brain isn't shutting down, right? What is it? Do that self report of what this is. Why is this an issue for you? So then we can start to work through that. We, meaning you and your provider or doctor, and you and yourself, right? You can take this information and say, okay, I'm not turning my brain off at night. I know that. What are some things that I can do? Can I brain dump? Can I start to get into a little bit of a routine? Is my circadian rhythm is messed up? Get that light early in the morning, right? And do that, repetitively, try to do it every day. But if not, start with 2 or 3 times a week, right? And see how that helps and changes. It does take a couple of weeks to start working, like everything. I wish there was something instantaneous. Trust me, I wish there was a pill. I wish there was. If there was, I would try to patent it so we can make everyone sleep. But folks, the reality is this: there isn't. We have to figure out what's happening for us, and that is the biggest important piece, right? As we've already discussed, sleep is so multifactorial and there can be so many things happening and that's why sleep advice doesn't work for everyone, because if you don't understand your data, if you can't tell I'm a data driven person, but if you don't understand your data and your patterns, then taking some advice on that you saw on TikTok is probably not going to help you, right? It might, if that person's advice is focused on one of the things that's your issue, but let's just start doing a self report first, right? Let's stop and say, what is our issue, so that we don't have to waste our time on strategies that aren't going to work for us. And we can actually focus the time that we do have, which, because by the way, as midlife women, we don't have a lot of time, right? We're busy out here ruling the world and trying to just stay upright and keep everything going. But then we can focus our energies on what's actually hindering us, right? We can focus on that thyroid. We can focus on that ferritin. We can focus on magnesium or getting that circadian rhythm back, or optimizing our hormones if that's the thing. So that's the call to action. The call to action is give yourself a report card, okay? And tell us about it, right? This is the way that we improve and we help each other. Is let me hear. That's why we have community. What the heck is your report card? Where are you? Where are you not? Where are you falling short? Right? And we can help each other make plans, and we can say, hey, oh, me too. I'm having a problem with this too. And this is what I do. And that worked or that didn't work. Right? It's like networking. Right? But share our reports. Right? Share it with your friends. Like, how are you sleeping? Do you know what your deep sleep is? Right? These are things we have to normalize, conversations that we have to normalize, so that we share this information with the world, right? Be like, yo, I do this to my friends all the time, and they know me by now, right? Okay, Dr. Sarah. My friends don't call me that, but I'm like, yo, what does your Aura ring say? What was your sleep like last night? How much deep sleep did you get? Like, blah, blah, blah. We know. But we got to start having these conversations and normalizing them, right? When you're at lunch or brunch after this, ask, Oh, I see you have an Aura ring on or whatever, a track wearable. What's your sleep like? Do you know? Do you know what your REM is? Right? So we want to normalize this and start talking about it. So call to action. What's your sleep report card? Where are you having trouble? Where are you doing great? Right. And then we can augment those things from there to try to get the most optimal sleep we can. We're never going to be perfect, and that's okay. No one expects that. But we really, if we can optimize our sleep, we will improve our longevity. We will improve our symptoms during the day. We will improve our cellular capacity and our ability to function, which is, I think, what most of us are trying to do, right? Optimize that ability for us to function daily. So I hope that helped. I hope you got some good information from this. I will put the in the chat only tracker your little go by that I'm talking about sleep latency, REM, deep sleep, and giving some tips and tricks. And until next time, stay well. Thanks for being here. Have a good day.